I'm Gary Chesney. This is my wife, Debbie Chesney. And in the year 2000, we founded Homes of Love. Today, I am the chairman of the board, and Debbie is the executive director of the board. And Debbie really does all the daily operations, the daily overseeing of our staff here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and also she oversees the operations in Vietnam, Zimbabwe, and Cambodia. I married Debbie, and it was really the vision was birthed in her childhood, and us talking about it and praying about it and seeing the Lord work with that. That's where my thoughts about adopting and about Homes of Love really originated.
When I was in high school, the Vietnam War was going on. It wasn't really a personal trial, but it really affected, I think, who I am today and where we've ended up. The news during those days was filled with the Vietnam War, just the casualties. I remember seeing pictures of orphans with their little hands reached out, begging for food. One of the probably things that really deeply impacted me, I was a senior in high school, and they were airlifting children out of at the very end of the war, and when the planes went down. And I remember just that story of just a lot of death. There were some survivors, but just the tragedy of so many children on that plane, and that really impacted me. At the same time, I was in high school. My young life leader in high school adopted a baby that was airlifted out of Vietnam. And I think those two things really put adoption in my heart. I was not really a believer at the time, but God really did something deep in my heart as far as I really cared more about adopting children than birthing children. That was really more of my passion. And it was a long journey before Gary was ready to consider adoption. So for me, it was a 20-year journey. That was actually very painful, and I really did think it was probably I got to the point where I thought I wasn't going to get to adopt, that I knew God had given me a passion for adoption, but I was willing to let the dream die and use that passion for another way. And so at one point I thought my role would just be to encourage other people to do it, and it wasn't going to be in my future. But God did work in Gary's heart, and he did bring us on the exact same page. And I say we were just waiting for our daughter to be born, and that God had the right child picked out for us, and we had to wait 20 years for Gary and I to be on the same page, as well as our little girl to be born.
When we first met Ann Lee, I mean, what a joy that was to have her in our arms, and to watch Debbie's smile when she first embraced Ann Lee. And seeing that obviously impacted me, and where Ann Lee was cared for very deeply by a lady over there that we call her, Ann Lee's angel. We saw that, but then we saw in an orphanage how there were so many children there, and they were just being taken care of physically, and saw a lot of needs that were going unmet, and saw lots of babies in cribs, lots of children that could not be cared for because there was so many. I mean, there was over 100 in the orphanage, and there was no way that they could take care of them. They could take care of their physical needs. That was the best that they could do to do that. And we saw children, not in this orphanage, but in another orphanage, dying of just a simple case like diarrhea. And so it was just realized that the orphanage, while it is something, there's better avenues to take care of children and to help meet all the needs for them to be able to grow up to be functioning adults and make an impact in the community.
I'm very thankful for the orphanage. They saved my daughter's life. They took her from a crisis situation. They sustained her. They had to water down her milk. She was very malnourished. But the children there, as they grew older, They'd stand in line for their food. They never had a choice of anything they would get to wear. They were given hand-me-downs. It was an institution. And the thought of my daughter growing up in a place like that is just, it's overwhelming. She's my daughter. She needs a family and she needs a home. And I know, and her siblings know what her future would have been like if she'd stayed there. And it's just not a good place for children to grow up. As much as they try to take care of her, it's not a family. And children need families to grow up in. It's not an institution that they need to grow up in.
As far as when Homes of Love started, we met with a Vietnamese pastor that was visiting the States. And we wanted to do something in Vietnam. We were very involved with the community here in Knoxville and helped to plant the Vietnamese church and had them over to our house and did all kinds of outreaches. But we wanted to do something in Vietnam. And when we were talking to the Vietnamese pastor, we were asking him something about maybe we want to do an orphanage like what you were saying, and help build one and help take care of a lot of children. And he said that wouldn't work in Vietnam. And really Homes of Love was birthed through his heart. He said that won't work, but what will work are small homes for the children. Small homes that a mom and a dad can take care of a few children. So Homes of Love was really birthed out of that man's heart and vision. Everything that we do is to try and resemble a family like what you grew up and what I grew up. And these children do become our children. And we try and take care of them as if they were our own children. We have a mom and a dad. That's our model for the Homes of Love. And in each home, we have at first we had it where there was 10 children in each home, and we realized that's probably still too many. And so now we're scaling that back where each home will have just 5 children. And that will allow the mom and the dad to better take care of something that's a little more manageable, if you will. And we've seen our children thrive. We saw them, instead of trying to figure out where their next meal was coming from, we saw them being able to start dreaming. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is our children started dreaming, what does God want me to do for my life? And where does he want to take me? How does he want to use me?
There's children all over the world that need homes, and we know that. We've really tried hard to be not need-driven, but God-driven. And so we really want to keep our eyes on the Lord, where the countries that he puts in our hearts, it's not a quick decision that we ever make to go into another country. We consider those very heavily when we go into a new country. But the truth is, we want to help more children. There's children waiting right now. We've got children waiting actually in Vietnam. Enough to fill 3 homes. And so our heart is to start more homes. We need godly parents in these different countries that these children are growing up in. The parents in these countries can do it a lot better than we can sending Americans to do this job. And so we want to help more homes and more children. God created the family for a purpose. And that purpose is to be a healthy place for children to grow up in. I'm thankful for the orphanage that did save my child's life, but I'd never want her to grow up there. She needed our family. And there's more children all over the world that are just like my daughter, that need families. They don't need to come to the United States. We wholly support foreign adoption. But in their own country, there are people that can take these children into their homes and raise them as their own children, where the children that are neglected and abused, abandoned, can grow up in a family. And that's how God created it. And that's what our desire is too. There's no place like a family for a child to grow up. You can't get the nurturing, you can't get the love, you can't get the support all that a family provides, the security a family provides, all that is only going to come through the arms of a mom and dad.